Yes, lovely to be here, and indeed, it's to me. I speak about Healthusiasm, and I'll explain very briefly what it is. Actually, the whole hour will be about that. But I think you probably are the most easiest crowd for me because you're probably fully in line with everything that I'll be talking about. What I try to do is I'll bring you a little bit of context of why your business is so important today. Why what you are doing is essential for basically maybe even the future of humanity. I'm not going to push it too much, but it might be the case. Who am I? So my name is indeed Christophe Jauquet. I call myself a business strategist for a healthier future, and I work with businesses. I don't only work with healthcare, but I also work with supermarkets, with car manufacturers, with people that build homes, people that organize certain spaces. I work with tech companies, I work with sports companies. Any type of business in the world I work with. And I work with on one specific topic, and that's health consumers or patients. Because I believe there's the biggest group in the world, and they're probably the most underserved. And how do I work with them? I work as a keynote speaker. So I basically travel the world and I inspire them about the future of health and self-care. That's basically in a nutshell. But at the core of everything that I do is one thing. And that is that health and happiness is probably the single most important thing in all of our lives. Let me just ask you the question, and probably this is going to be obvious, but who does not want to be healthy and happy? See what I mean? And so what I do every day is I look at the evolutions, the trends that we see in society, the trends that we see in technology, the trends that we see in business, and I try to interpret what that means for health and well-being. And also do the opposite. I look at our own health and well-being behaviors and try to see how that influences business, how that influences certain technologies or even evolutions in society. That's basically what I do. And every 2 weeks something, I write a ton of newsletters on all of these trends that I see, all of these relations that I see. And eventually they end up in books. My first book is called Healthusiasm, and the second book you can actually buy here. It's called Trends in the Transformation Economy. The first book was really about why are people occupied with their health? And what does this mean for businesses? And how can they actually play a role in that? How can they make their customers healthy and happy? And the second book just recently came out this year is about how we now see an entirely new economy rising in that same philosophy. I call this a transformation economy where actually customer transformations, transforming your customers, making them feel better, healthier or happier, is a whole new economy that has a major impact on any type of business. Very often what they say is that health is a vertical business. You have health, you have IT, you have whatever. But I believe that health is actually transversal business. It goes into any type of business that we have out there. And so this is what I'll be talking about today. I'll be talking about this healthusiasm that we all have, this enthusiasm to be healthy and happy. And you might wonder, or you might say, well, nice, but I mean, people have always been interested in their own health. I mean, they've brought out offers to the gods 2,000-3,000 years ago already, right? Why did they do that? Just to be healthy and happy. So what changed? When did it change? How did it change? That's basically what I want to bring to you now. And for that, I need to go back to my childhood. You might know this woman. The 80s was actually the first time ever that people started doing things to influence their own health instead of just praying or bringing offers to the gods. You might remember, these walls. You might remember this kind of television. You might remember these videos. It was the first time that people exercised to be a little more healthier and happier. And that's pretty remarkable because we came out of a time where we were selling cigarettes like this, right? Where you could actually buy cigarettes bedside in a hospital. But as of the 80s, it started going down quite a bit. 45% of people were smoking back then. And it just dramatically decreased. And this is what I call healthusiasm. As from the 60s and definitely the 80s onwards, we saw a lot more people taking an impact or wanting to have an impact on their own health. And this is what I call healthusiasm. Now you see that this accelerated. And so in the first part of the presentation, what I will try to do is I'll bring you 5 evolutions that actually explains why people today are even more than ever occupied with their health. I'll also explain why it is important for your business and why you are so important, but you'll feel it, right? After that, I'll see where we end up with that, but after that I have a couple of other things. I have a little bit of a crystal ball. I try to look into the future and try to help you think about where is this going? What does it mean for me? It could be that if we have enough time that we have a little bit of an interactive session there. But I'll talk about 4 specific futures that I think are very interesting for you. But first, the 5 evolutions. And let me, they took away my drink. Anyway, 5 evolutions. Let's start with the first one. The first one is pretty obvious. Why are we more occupied with our health? There's one clear reason for that, and that is a technological evolution, right? We have more than ever opportunity to impact our health because there is a technological evolution. We have technology now that is very professional, that years ago we could not afford. Everybody could afford a lot of professional tools today, and you can go online to learn how to work with them. And even if you want to, do something with it, you have an audience through social media immediately. So if you want to become a video editor, if you want to bring out a book, publish a book, if you want to, make a movie, whatever you can do, there are tools, professional tools that are doing it. I'm actually recording this right now with a very simple tool that costs about 200 euros. That is pretty professional from a sound quality perspective. This is what we have today. And so you see people like The Weeknd. Who knows The Weeknd? He started in his bedroom in 2012, 13. He made 3 albums in about a year, put it online, put it on YouTube, and then suddenly Drake picked it up, and now he's one of the most celebrated stars in the world. He started with tools in his own bedroom. This is how it's done. He's a multi-billion dollar selling artist. That's how it's done. If you want to become an artist, you can become an artist today. So if you want to become a runner, you can become a runner as well. I mean, the running apps, you can say a lot of things about them, but what they really did was make sure that you can persevere in running. I mean, running is the easiest sport. It's been around since 4,000 years probably. You don't even have to put shoes on to go running. That's how they did it in the past. But now, more and more people are running. If you look at trails or marathons, it's like 20 times as much as 20 years ago. That's how important it is. And that's in part because we have technology to do that. There's a lot that we have today that allows us to optimize everything that is related to running. We have a lot of information. We know how we put our feet. We know how our cadence is. We know what we need to eat. We know how we need to sleep. We know if we didn't sleep well, how hard we need to train. We have a ton of information and a ton of tools available that actually allow us to do things that we imagined was not possible in the past. This is Eliud Kipchoge, and he was the first man to run a marathon under the 2 hours. Never done before. Everybody thought it was basically impossible. And he did it. And how did he do it? With technology. Technology like this, for example, because they attribute it to one of his shoes, which is this Nike Vaporfly shoe, which you can buy for 300 euros. Everybody can buy it. And it's actually a shoe that helps you running 2% faster. Those are the tools that we have today available. And if you look at the shoes 25, 30 years ago, this is how they looked. This is what we have today. We can become who we want to become simply by the technology that we have available. And the same thing is true if you look at healthcare. People used to run around, patients used to run around with these thin, small boxes, pill boxes they were called. And the only thing that a patient needed to do was remember to take a medication. Right? That's the only thing. It didn't even ask questions to a physician. That's how it used to be. And then came Mr. Dr. Google, which was a good thing in many ways, which was a challenging thing in other ways. You know what I'm talking about. But the good thing is that people became more informed. In the beginning, wrongly informed, but more and more what we know is that there's pretty good websites out there that can really help you out. But now more and more what we see is that physicians themselves will refer to certain websites, to certain Google pages, what have you, and now they become empowered. But the recent 10 to 15 years, more and more people don't just want to be informed or empowered, they want to have an active influence on their own health. They want to be actively involved in their own health. This is what they're trying to do today. And these pill boxes, they've turned into a digital device, obviously. But what we see now is that more and more people are trying to buy stuff technology that helps them to become who they want to become. If you want to become healthier, they can. This device during COVID was nowhere to be found. It was sold out for 2 years basically because suddenly everybody wanted to have some blood oxygen saturation meter in house. This is what happened. People wanted to have that information. If you look at the Apple Watches, there's 250 million out there. 250 million people are measuring their heart rates every 3 to 4 minutes. Why? Because somehow they want it. Chatbots are out there. You can easily chat with somebody about what's happening with you, be referred or not be referred, get some first information. And you can find a lot of information or a lot of tools that help you find information that is specifically about your health, about your situation. This is where we are. And these are just some examples because they are part of bigger trends, which I call information, social media, technology, or electrify. To briefly showcase how important these are is that 52% of people go online every year to look for health information. If you look at through a lifetime, it's 82%. Go online to find information. Social media even worse, or better. 93% of people that follow certain health influencers, they actually change their behaviors based on what they see there. Technology, 1 in 3 is using wearables, 1 in 2 is using health apps. And AI, well, I don't have any data there yet, but what you'll see is that when we talked about Dr. Google, I saw some of you smirking, laughing a little bit, but what AI will do is AI will be Dr. Google on steroids. Because everything that you can hear from a physician, you'll find online. There's an AI that will tell you probably even better, more concise, in your language, the patient's language, what he wants to hear, what he needs to hear, how he needs to go about it. This is what we will see. And AI, I call it electrify. Why? Because similar to electricity, which is pretty much everywhere in our life, we don't even think about electricity because it's, look around you, everything on our arms and in this room is about electricity. We'll have the same thing with AI. Everything in our life, every simple physical object will have AI in it. And that will be the impact on our health, that will be the impact on our entire life. So that will radically change. This technology will make sure that this healthusiasm that we've seen is being accelerated. People have the tools today to become who they want to become. You want to become a runner? You can become a runner. You want to become a movie editor? You can become a movie editor. Anything you want to become today is peaceful. It's this empowerment which has to do with everything in our life. We don't accept just things the way they are. We are looking for ways to empower ourselves, to have an impact on who we are, and to have an impact on who you want to become. That's the first evolution. There's a second evolution, that's a psychological evolution, which is probably even more important because you can have technology all you want, but if the psychology doesn't change, then it won't be of any use, of course. And what we see in Western societies most of the times is that the basic and the social needs, the basic and the emotional needs are largely fulfilled. This is the Maslow pyramid, simplified a little bit into 3 schemes. But what you see is that more and more, because those 2 are completed, fulfilled, people go to the top of the pyramid. What you have at the top of the pyramids is self-actualization needs. People become more aspirational. And you can see this really well if you look at retirement. There's a lot of people, if I look at my dad, for example, when he went on retirement, what he said was, well, I worked my whole life, now it's time for me. I'll do whatever I want to do. I'll make that travel I want to do. I'll do that hobby I never got the chance to actually doing. If you look at youngsters, and I consider most of you youngsters, what you see is that they actually don't wait until retirement to do what they want to do. They turn their hobby into profession. They take a sabbatical to travel. They want to become the best version of themselves already today. People are more than ever aspirational because their other needs are largely fulfilled. This is what we see today. Now the question then is, if people are aspirational and they have these aspirations, what are these? Thank you, by the way. Now aspirations have all to do with what is important in your life. What are your values? What are your dreams? What are your priorities? What is really important for you yourself? Well, very often we think then it's about becoming a better person. It's becoming about, that bigger person, always about improving. But that's partially true in a sense that indeed sometimes you need more energy. Sometimes you want to have more creativity. We want to develop ourselves. It's definitely the case. We have a lot of these aspirations that has to do with improvement. But what we realized in the recent years is that people have been so much focused on improving themselves that sometimes it can be or bring the opposite effect. Because 3 to 5% of people are so excessively focused, for example, on exercising, on becoming healthier, that it actually puts a strain on them and that it makes them feel unwell. Focusing too much on wellness or well-being can actually make you feel unwell. Came out of the World Happiness Report already in 2019. And so what we see is that people more and more, instead of just going online and having this FOMO of everything that is happening, the fear of missing out, I should have been there, I should have done that, blah, blah, blah. More and more what we see is that people are starting to feel more JOMO, the joy of missing out, which is happening more and more. It's one of the big trends that we see today. There's even the joy of being solo or being by yourself that is extremely picking up right now because we realize that it's very damaging to ourselves. And so our aspirations, which are often related to improvement, are becoming more moderate. It's not just about improvement anymore. Sometimes it's about prevention, preventing something from happening. Sometimes it's, and it's also very important, definitely in the healthcare industry, sometimes it's about acceptance, accepting things the way they are. If you're sick, if you have cancer, for example, one of the things I always say to pharmaceutical companies or healthcare institutions is, don't always call your patients warriors. Because half of the time they haven't even accepted the fact that they're sick. So sometimes for a patient, the most important thing for them is to accept the fact that they are sick. And then they can move on, and then they can do other stuff. If you start by saying to them, you need to fight, well, what? It doesn't work that way. And finally, some enjoyment. These are the aspirations that we're having. They're more moderate than ever because we realize we can't be always improving. Sometimes it's okay to be not okay. Sometimes it's okay to be just okay. This is something that we learned definitely during COVID. And in my last book, I identified what I call life aspirations. And these are common aspirations that we all have. They're very universal. But depending on who you are, what you have in your life, what is important to you, you might find one or the other more important than the other. And I think this is really important because it makes a difference. Very often if I talk to businesses or if I talk to people that try to motivate patients, they say you need to run, you need to sleep, you need to have a better mental health, you need to eat better. And then they say, well, they didn't do it, so they're not motivated. How do you know? These are the means. If you're talking about eating better, if you're talking about sleeping better, these are the means. What you need to talk about is why will they do it? This is the real why people want to be healthy and happy. It's like the level below. When I brought out my first book, it was called Healthusiasm, Making Customers Healthy and Happy. Companies asked me, yeah, but what does it mean healthy and happy? It's so fluffy. And so what I tried to do with the second book is I tried to answer that question. This is the level just below. It makes it a little bit more concrete. And there's one type of businesses that really understood this really, really well. Because you can, for any type of aspiration, you can find the supplements. And that's why they're so successful. That's why they're exploding these days, because people are so aspirational. And whether it is you want to avoid losing hair, whether it is to boost some confidence, be more relaxed, or have more energy, whatever it may be, you always find something that answers your aspiration. This is what we see today. And obviously, there's a lot of crap on the market and they mix stuff that they shouldn't be mixing, and that is something that we need to deal with. But what it shows is that we have these life aspirations, and I really believe that the life aspiration model that I've been working on for 4 or 5 years helps anybody who wants to make their customers, their clients more healthy and happy to become more successful, because you talk to what is really most important to them. Do they want nothingness? Do they want to feel nothing? Do they want to feel solidarity like we wanted to have in COVID? We wanted to feel that we're together in this. Do we want to have less stress? Like in my book, I describe all of these 24 and I make them very practical and I explain also how it is used in different industries. But this is the why people want to be healthy and happy, which is one of the biggest things today, because more and more what we see if people are aspirational, and we're talking about the psychological evolution, is that people don't want to wait anymore. They know somehow that maybe they're a ticking time bomb. They don't want to be reactive, they want to become proactive. This is what we see. Actually, 50% of people today say that they are pretty proactive in the way that they go about their health and happiness. What's even more, if you look at a very recent study by Lululemon, is that 89% today say that they did more for their health than they did last year. That's how important it is. That's how people are more than ever occupied with their health. So that's a second evolution. We had technological evolution, we had the psychological evolution with the aspirations that people have today. There's also an economic evolution because of that. Because if half of the population wants to be healthy and happy, if almost 90% takes more decisions than last year, well, it means that there's business that comes along with it. And marketeers, this is the marketing guru in the world, Seth Godin, he said that marketeers basically what they do is they help people to become who or what they want to become. This is really what businesses try to do. They sell something that is aspirational. Well, these days, more and more what we've noticed is that these aspirations become more important, that indeed people are more aspirational. And so already in 2015, trendwatching.com, which is one of the biggest trend bureaus in the world, what they said is that this self-actualization needs, these aspirations that people have, will become the soul, the foundation of almost every purchasing decision that people will take. They said it in 2015, while in 2021, Nielsen, who is the company that gathers all the data in the world on purchasing behavior, said that the biggest force right now, biggest consumer force out there is actually health and wellness. 6 years later. This is how big it is. Accenture then came out and said, you know what? Every business is a health business. And that's not a surprise. Did the researchers look at how are companies meaningful to their customers? How are they, bring value to them? Well, 71% said brands and companies need to improve the health and well-being of their customers. There is more and more traction in any type of business to make their customers healthy and happy, which is not so stupid. If you look at the Google search terms, the relative Google search terms between 2007 and 2017, it quadrupled. It quadrupled. To then again double after that. This is how big taking care of yourself has become. Wunderman Thompson, another great marketing agency, said, we are in the era of the super self. Self-care is actually being supercharged. We have a lot of tools to take care of ourselves. More and more companies are going into that field. And it's a $6.3 trillion business. Now, if you're wondering how big is that really, it's this big. That was a joke. Come on. Anyway, there's more coming to the slide, of course. But no, I wanted to show it like this, and it has some joke in there. I need to work on that. But what you see is that, for example, the wellness economy, which is 6.3, is almost 5 times as big as the consumer tech business. It's 4 times as big as the pharmaceutical business. That's the business that says people don't want to pay for health. Well, think again. Sports, tourism, the green economy, the IT economy, the wellness economy is bigger than all of those. That's how big it is. It's not yet as big as the food and beverages. It's not yet as big as the healthcare expenditures in the world. But if you think about it, all the blue are the repetitions or are the parts in that specific market that is dedicated to health consumption. So you can see that in consumer tech, there's almost 25 to 30%. Sports, the majority is related to health and wellness. Tourism, 20% is related to health and wellness. The green economy, is almost half of it is related to health and wellness. So there's a lot of businesses that almost 20 to 50% have dedicated services for health consumers. That's how important it has become. And obviously, It's been proven and proven in any type of study. This is by Ogilvy. But why do I show this? Is because we're not at the end of this. Because in that study by Ogilvy, what they noticed is that the expectations of people towards brands and companies, towards industries, is even higher than what they're receiving today. They called it the health and wellness gap. So you see, for example, in skincare, people expect a lot more than they're receiving today. And that's basically true for almost every type of business. So we can expect the numbers that I showed you earlier, that it will only continue to grow. And these are some of the examples, just to give you an idea of what is happening. This is one of my clients. This is a ventilation company. Instead of just saying, we will go into the market and be trying to be competitive on price, or we try to be competitive on performance, they say, we will not do that. What we will do is we will make your space healthy. We create healthy spaces. We're not going to fight over price and performance. We make our spaces healthy. They've been doing that for 15 years. This is their sole formula for success. They make your space, and it makes sense, right? Because we spend 90% of our time indoors, which is 5 times as unhealthy from an air quality perspective. Mercedes-Benz, in my book actually, there's a whole chapter on all the car manufacturers are focusing on health. One of my favorites is Mercedes-Benz. They went to the market on 2017 already with a fit and health car, which tracks everything that you do. So they have the monitors in the car, but they also link with all the wearables that you might have yourself. And their purpose is to make you healthier when you are in the car. So if you drive here for 3 hours, to get here, you have to drive for 3 hours. You probably feel exhausted. They want to make you feel fresher, healthier when you get out of that car after 3 hours of driving. Kind of makes sense because in a couple of years you won't be driving anymore anyway. So what do you do in your car, right? Then you have more and more functional fragrances, like certain odors that help you feel less stress. I have a zillion type of examples. This is a pill dispenser, a telemonitoring solution on the market in Germany and in the States. It's brought to the market by Black & Decker, you might know. We have supermarkets that give you loyalty and discounts when you buy healthy foods. And then you have Walt Disney who try to make children zen again because they're very agitated by all the social media. And so they brought these zen animations onto the market as well. I can give you a zillion types of examples in that sphere of what is happening. We have an economic revolution which is answering the need of people. 73%, 75% of people want to be healthy and happy, and they're looking to brands to help them with it. Third evolution, fourth evolution, not done yet. You still with me? Cool. Fourth evolution is the one that you probably still somehow remember but don't think about anymore, which is COVID, of course, which was a pretty interesting one in many ways. I mean, there was a lot of FUD, as I like to call it, fear and certainly and doubt about what to do, how to go about health. I mean, we got information from all sides. And what you see is then, if you again go to Google, is that people go online. They want to understand things. They really want to know what is the best thing to do, because they do their own research. That's what that was what it was called. So we were not only dealing with a pandemic back then, but we also were dealing with an infodemic, or infoxication even, if you will. Because there was so much information out there, it was very hard to understand what was happening, what needs to be done. And what we've noticed there, and it still is the case today, is that there's a big tension field between the social proof that we're looking for. Like if you go on social media and look at all these healthfluencers, medfluencers, what have you, we want to believe them. And then there's the scientific proof, which for many people is too complex, they don't understand it. It doesn't fit the mold of social media because it's not concise, it's not very attractive enough. So this is what we're dealing with ever since COVID, more than ever. People are looking for social proof, but people are looking also for the scientific proof. Nevertheless, ever since COVID, more and more people take everyday decisions that impact their own health, more than ever before. They realize that they need to do that. And it's still going on pretty massively. So this graph that I originally had when my first book came out in 2019 is actually no longer wrong, because it was right, because it actually had a bump thanks to COVID. And what we saw is that fields that probably were less important back then, after COVID became way more important. We saw the Great Resignation. People wanted to do a job that took care of themselves. More and more companies were started focusing on employee well-being and so forth. I have like 10 or 12 these kind of evolutions that happened or that increased radically ever since COVID. Finally, the fifth revolution has to do with all the previous ones as well, is the social revolution. When I was young in the 80s, I mean, people didn't talk about health. It was a very simple thing. But right now, who has not sent a health question or not given a health answer to somebody through WhatsApp or to social media? Why are there 2,500 breast cancer groups on Facebook? Why is Patients Like Me or Serenity, which are actually Facebook specifically for patients, so popular? It's because people want to share with others about their journey, about their story. And why do they want to do it? Because they want to learn from others. If I share something, I get a lot of information back, and I can really learn about what is happening. This was not the case 20, 30 years ago. People did not talk about health the same way as they are doing today. And so what we also notice is that these social media is that, I talked about the healthfluencers and the medfluencers, I talked about 93% that actually take some actions. But if you look at chronic patients who need to go to physicians every 2-3 months, even they adapt their behaviors when they see something online, on simple things like TikTok. Small movies of 10 seconds. They adapt their behavior. This is what we see today. And more people go not from one or a second opinion, they go to a third opinion. I work a lot with insurance companies. One of their biggest issues is how many of these will we reimburse? I mean, people are not satisfied with the first one, not satisfied with the second one, the third one, and well, they keep on going. It's one of the biggest issues, but people really want to understand what's happening. And more so, they want to have an impact on the decisions about their health that are being taken. This is what we see. People want to have that impact. And this is the social revolution that we are seeing. People put themselves at the center. We're no longer in this reality where the physician is at the center of the health universe. We are actually living what I call a Copernican health revolution, and the patient or the person is at the center of his own health. And there's social media, there's friends, there's family, there's a ton of technology out there. Yes, the physician is still out there, but it changed. There's a lot more opinions, there's a lot more information that he or she wants to take into account when he or she deals with their own health. I'm at the center of my health. And a lovely example, I added it here, is that we see more and more pharmacists thinking in the same way. It's no longer just about you go to a counter to talk to somebody or to a cashier. No, they organize themselves that way, and the pharmacist is actually circling around the patient. So it's not just the patient going to a pharmacist, it's the opposite. The pharmacist is coming to you because he's circling around it. But a lot of new designs in pharmacists are having that principle, making sure that the patient feels at the center of their own health, making sure that even physically they feel it. So these are the 5 evolutions, right? Quickly summarizing, we have the technological evolution, which means that people basically today can become who they want to become because technology allows us to do that. We have a psychological evolution saying that aspirations are the new needs in life. So our basic and social needs are largely fulfilled. We have new aspirations. We want to become the best version of ourselves, even if it means not only improving, but preventing, accepting, and enjoying as well. The economic evolution, every business becomes a health business, more and more because people demand it from businesses. We're having a health revolution where people really, when in doubt, were looking for answers themselves because they didn't believe something, they didn't just took it for granted. Healthcare industry has always been very paternalistic. I know what it is, you listen to me. It's no longer the case. People don't accept it anymore, not as easily. And we started the Copernican health revolution because we want to put ourselves at the center of our own health. These are the 5 evolutions that are critical today. And this is why today I no longer speak actually about healthcare. Because I believe healthcare is too much of an on and off switch. You know, you're sick and you go into the system, on. And you're kind of, cured and you go out of the system and you're off again. In reality, we take care of our health a lot more, basically all the time. That's why I speak about healthusiasm. Because basically 99% of everything about caring for our health happens outside of the healthcare industry anyway. And this is why you are so important, of course. So this is the Healthusiasm trend, as I like to call it, and the consequences of that, and this is something that you might take with you if you're thinking about services or products in your own business, is that basically consumer and patient in healthcare, it's always been the discussion. Is a patient a consumer? Is a consumer a patient or not? Well, to me, they're exactly the same person. Because all of us are patients and all of us are consumers, right? Sometimes we find ourselves in a situation as a patient. Sometimes we find ourselves in a situation as a consumer. But basically, the needs may be different, but our expectations are the same. Now, what we see is that patients, they used to take, or they hopefully are involved in medical decisions only. And consumers, they should be taking lifestyle decisions. This is what we see, this is what's always been the case. But when it comes to our health, we notice that there are also preventative decisions, which I call health and well-being. And everything in between those things is really what Healthusiasm is all about. And what we notice, if the healthcare industry is at the far right at the top there, and the consumer business is at the bottom left, what we notice is that these boundaries between these industries are blurring, and they're coming closer to each other. This is supermarkets mapped on this graph. I work a lot with supermarkets. This is all the things that they are doing related to consumers or patients, depending on what situation they're in, and whether they need to take a medical decision, a preventative decision, a decision that helps them maintain their health and well-being, or simply a lifestyle decision. If you look at Apple only, this is what they're providing today. I'm not even talking about all of their plans that they're having. So no wonder that this week, Tim Cook, which is the Apple CEO, said this: our biggest contribution to humanity is the fact that we will have a massive impact on health. This is where they want to play. This Healthusiasm is real for them. They understand why it is important and what they want to do with it. This is the Healthusiasm that I always speak about and that more and more people have. And it's driven by 5 evolutions, but it goes to, let's say, 4 more futures. And I'm looking at you on, do we have some time? How much do we have? 10, 15? Okay. I have not a lot of slides here because I wanted to see if there's a bit of interaction and see if you have some questions related to those futures. All of the 4 futures that I will present will definitely happen. It's not like I can predict the future. It's just that everything that you can imagine about the future will definitely happen. If I present you 4 things, I can definitely 8 out of them will happen. This is how it goes. Because part of it will definitely happen. Maybe in a different way than I might present or talk about here today, but they will happen in some form or another. So 4 futures. By the way, you can go to my website to see a lot of those futures if you want. The first thing has to do with care tuning. Everything that I showed you today about Healthusiasm, about the fact that people want to take their health in their own hands, leads to the fact that there's a lot happening outside of the healthcare industry. And that's pretty difficult because there's a lot of data outside of the healthcare industry and there's a lot of data, for example, inside the healthcare industry, and very often they don't speak to each other, right? There's a lot of things that happen in lifestyle medicine that many people in the healthcare industry don't even know about. And for a patient, that's very difficult. What we notice is that patients are having a hard time getting into the industry, finding new ways, other ways to actually talk about health outside of the industry. But then when it's really necessary, there is no link. It's not tuned to each other. This information is not really shared. And more what we'll see is functions that will facilitate this care tuning. One of the examples is health and wellness coaches, for example. The Mayo Clinic is having a lot of health and wellness coaches that is training any healthcare staff to go about everything that's happening outside of the healthcare industry, to bring the soft care, if you will, also in that hard care environment. We have lifestyle medicine in itself is basically a way to be able to tune this care because everything If a physician starts taking into account these lifestyle elements, which was previously not the case, it really, or at least a lot less, it really helps to understand what is happening outside of healthcare and not just the pure scientific things as well. And I had one other example and I forgot about it. But maybe open up. Is there any thoughts on this care tuning and the fact that this will happen?
I feel this is already happening with, are you familiar with Femble?
No, tell me.
So Femble is an Austrian startup that is trying to combat misinformation among women's health, and they're only getting accredited health providers, verified health providers as creators. I'm one of them. And then what they're trying to do is get this social media-like interaction, and then further down the road, potentially allowing the viewers to directly interact with the health providers to try to combat that. So that's where, when you said this, I thought of them straight away.
Yeah, I think I'm definitely not saying it's not happening yet. What I mean is that because of all of the things that we're seeing with the Healthusiasm trends happening, this will become primarily, it will be everywhere, it will need to be everywhere. Otherwise it will be a huge class. And it's even most in the interest of the healthcare industry to be open for everything that's happening not in the healthcare industry. Because they've always been very protective about data, about their patients, about everything that they're doing, and they don't really have the time, they don't really have the need to do it. But if so much things are happening outside of the healthcare industry, bit by bit you'll see that this will happening. I mean, the biggest example is health data, for example. There is probably, I don't know, 100,000 times more data, health data outside of the healthcare industry than in the healthcare industry. Now, I'm not saying that every data outside of the healthcare industry is perfectly labeled and that it's always that valuable, but what we see is that there is more data and nothing has been done in the healthcare industry with that data. But there will be a point where the quality of that data outside of the healthcare industry will even continue to grow, but even will continue to grow in quality. And then what? How will they deal with it? They're not trained. Physicians are very often are also not trained to deal with continuous data. They only look at one point in time data. And so those are one of the things that when we talk about care tuning that will need to require a lot of attention because so much is happening outside of the healthcare industry that it will require the healthcare industry to open up.
What you say is true, but it has everything to do with the incredible regulations that surround healthcare information within the clinical setting.
Yes, but it doesn't mean that there is a certain setting or regulation that you cannot look at the data. I went to a cardiologist recently. I had all the data with me. He said, yeah, those tools are not valid. I was like, yeah, but it's a medical device. And he didn't even want to look at it. Like when I said I have these peaks when I sleep, whatever, it doesn't matter. I don't know. First future. Second future has to do with the role of, I believe, the whole first line. When I think about healthcare in very simple ways, I think there's three parties. There's the specialty care in hospitals, which in the future will become hyper specialized with AI and almost impossible to understand. You have self-care, which is probably the biggest trend out there with everybody that can do a lot of things themselves, understand, find information, do diagnosis, maybe even find solutions, whatever you have you all. And then there's the field in between, which is the primary care, which are physicians, pharmacists, sick funds, mutualities, insurance companies, those kind of. Well, if you are in that middle field, the primary care, you're in between two big magnetic fields because a lot of things is happening in self-care, a lot of things is happening in specialty care. And I'm not even talking about digital health, which floats around everything. So as a first line, it will be super difficult. And I wonder whether more and more the role of the first line will move from pure care giving to care guiding. Where actually you will need to be almost aware about pretty much everything that's happening in specialty care, almost aware about everything that's happening in self-care. Both of them impossible, but there have to be a way. And you need to guide people from one to another. That will probably be the role, in my opinion, for anything that is the first line. If you look at what pharmacists are doing, if you look at what mutualities, sick funds, insurance companies are doing, they're all trying to do the same thing. physician organizations, they all try to do the same thing. They try to find a new spot in between those two magnetic fields. And it hasn't been identified yet. But what we notice is that more and more the term health navigator, care coach, health coach, those kind of things pop up. Why? Because more and more we need to understand where do we need to go? What is happening? Is it a valid tool? What do I take something from that recommendation or the diagnosis that I got? The issues that we had with Dr. Google in early 2000s, where people came in the office with a diagnosis, which was completely wrong, well, expect a lot more of those, but the diagnosis will not be wrong, right? So that's a big thing. I mean, we often say that people are confidently stupid, right? But they won't remain stupid. They will remain confident. And that's a big difference, right? And this will change the whole paradigm of the first line, because everything that will come through you will be very challenging. And so whether will your role be caregiving or will your role be care guiding? I think it's already moving towards care guiding today, but it will radically even more be the case. Yes?
So your prediction, how do you see, for example, the population that's in this room acting? Because, for example, what I see practically myself, what I do a lot is to be a guy that's okay.
A guy that is okay is very good.
No, they come to me and I have this very expensive tool, I have this very expensive wearable, I went to this spa that I paid almost 100,000 euros, and they show everything to me and they say, yeah, sorry, but there's no science in any of those things. Not about you, okay, I have a watch, no, but it's literally there's no science about it. So people are searching, paying a lot of money outside, but a lot of those things, there's literally, for example, age. We have now a lot of tools that we can measure biological age.
Mm-hmm.
Even if you compare, if you do test yourself, you buy the same, and you do twice, you're going to have a different number.
Yeah.
So that's, what do you see? How do you see our
It's a difficult one. First of all, one small comment is that two things. What I like about lifestyle medicine is that you take things that were previously maybe not studied as much scientifically, and you try to find the right approaches which are scientifically more proven than others, right? I think that is a really good thing. What I also think is that even if it's not proven, between brackets, yet, it doesn't mean that it can't be valuable for people. So it's a different type of approach that you need to handle there, in my opinion. It's like, there's studies on sonar, there's studies on playing tennis. Will you say that playing tennis is unhealthy? I don't think so. So the thing is that there's a lot happening which is not even proven that maybe you can endorse with the footnote that's, careful footnote I would say, because you don't want to demotivate them. You just want to make sure that they understand what the real impact is. And maybe if they want to invest something, that they are balanced in how much they invest. That is, in my opinion, the role that you should play. But I'm always very wary, and that's why I use the Healthusiasm model, where you see, you know, the lifestyle decisions, the well-being decisions, the health decisions, and the medical decisions. The higher you go, the more proof you need to have. Lifestyle medicine is almost at the top. It doesn't mean that the 3 levels below do not make people feel healthier or happier. Even if you wear, I would say, sneakers and athleisure wear, you can feel sportier and healthier or happier even, right? And maybe that has a value as well. I just think you need to be clear on what the promise and the result is. It's also what I always say to companies. There's a lot of companies that want to go into the health sphere, and then they come out, and definitely startups, by the way, who come out and say, we can promise you this. But if there's no scientific solution or proof, then maybe you shouldn't do that kind of promise. Maybe it's a different kind of promise or a different kind of claim that you should make. So it's all about the claim that you make. But I wouldn't kill the issues that have less proof. I would just make sure that the claim is correct. And I think that is where your role should be.
So I would just like to make a comment. I think that, and we talk more and more in science about the so-called commercial determinants. So the industry is coming with an image, because you may there self-care and healthcare, but I think the line between them is the business. I mean, Apple indeed is offering a lot of products, for example, about health is great, but they have also their own products which has nothing to do get a lot of information, but while you are searching health information, you get also some products from the Google ads. So I think it's a third actor which is playing a role here and which should be taken serious. It's industry. So
Yeah.
what industry sells you, as you say,
The incentive.
yeah, I am today someone if I am like in that advertisement. And I remember when I arrived first in the lifestyle medicine field was through technology. So a patient of mine came with the phone and showing me, can you explain me this about my sleep? And I didn't know. I didn't know to explain what is going on. And now, of course, it's something that we are laughing about it, but 5 or 7 years ago, most of us, we didn't know about that.
Exact.
So, and technology, what brings here is these, as you mentioned in another context, it's the commercial determinants on steroids, if I would say. So there you have everywhere you go that you should be like that. And what happened with COVID, after COVID, is that we see the patients, they want more. So they're telling them that you want to eat healthy, what exactly? You should move, what exactly? Because even jogging, I mean, we had, it's a big name in lifestyle medicine, Beth Freitas. She wrote in her book that when she was a student in the 80s or something, she did an internship in UK and she was doing jogging. And someone stopped her on the street. Is everything okay with you? You are running from who? So then came the industry with the shoes, with the sports shoes, just do this. So I think here business is playing an important role of who they think that we should be.
Yeah, and there's two sides to it, right? It's a positive side because somehow it is making people more aware and making people move more. The question is, how are they overplaying it? And this is the role that I try to play with this Healthusiasm model. Is I always try to say, be careful in what the claim is because you don't want to go overboard. I mean, the consumer business and the medical business are two different distinct businesses with completely different requirements if you want to succeed in it. And so it's important to know in what field, one of these 4 layers that you are, to make sure that the claim that you bring forward is valid enough. Yeah.
Any indication that this is translating in the better health and better
Yes.
essentially, because we're still seeing a massive rise of chronic illnesses, strokes, dementia, cancer, everything is going dramatically up in the last 10 years.
Yeah.
But still we see what you're talking about.
Yeah, I think there's 3 things. One is we are living in a society that has a lot of processed foods, social media. We're not moving enough. So the construct of our society is not really helping. So that's why we still see things kind of worsening. I'll come to that in a second. The reason why I'm so focused on businesses is because everything, the construct of our society is made by business, by money, right? And so I really try to focus and make sure that people understand, whether it is in their own company or for their clients, is that they start changing things a little bit. What we've noticed from 2017, for example, is that processed foods on the Standard & Poor's index, which is the market value of companies on the stock exchange, you can follow there. The companies that had packaged food, they were going down dramatically. If you look at Unilever, they sold everything that was sugar out because it's going down. Alcohol, it's going down. So there's a lot of things that are moving in the good direction, but it goes really, really slow. And so what we see in society is that we have this sort of, and we saw the same thing during COVID really, really well, is that we have this split. People are more well than ever and healthier than ever, a part of the population, and there's another part that becomes worse and worse and worse. So we have this sort of divide. I mean, if you looked at questions during COVID, 40% of people said, yeah, I live unhealthier than ever. And 40% said, I live healthier than ever because I don't have the stress anymore, I work out a lot, I do walks, whatever. So, and this is the reality of today in society as well. And so it's a bit of a stretch. What I try to do is be conscious about the negative parts. But in healthcare in general, I really believe that we're too much focused on everything that's going bad, on everything that can't be working, on everything that is not yet good enough, or when we can't reach 100% of the people. But Healthusiasm, the reason why I chose that word is that I really want to focus on the good stuff. If you pay attention to what is really happening and you make sure that you amplify that, I'm pretty sure that that will grow. So that's kind of the philosophy that I'm trying to have here. Is it solved? No. Do we see more people healthier than ever? Yes. But do we see at the same time people still struggling? Also yes. So it's a matter of focusing on the good stuff to make sure that we pull those.
Yeah, I think it's also very relevant to work on social determinants of health, and that's where you're losing this population that actually
Yeah.
can get better, because this what you're talking, the access to this is essentially affluent population. So you would not see someone who doesn't have money to access what
It's not entirely true. I think a lot of research, and also the recent research by Lululemon says it as well, Lululemon says it as well, is that 90% of people are more occupied with their health. They don't have the same means, and they cannot go to Tony Robbins' his new longevity clinic, which costs 25,000 euros. I cannot afford it either. But there's a lot of things that you can do. There's a total misconception that, and I'll create some reaction here, but there's a total misconception that healthy food is expensive. If you look at the kilocalories, for example, or the energy that you can get from different foods, it's not expensive at all. But people don't always understand it. There's health literacy issues, those kind of things. We talked about social determinants, talked about commercial determinants. I've been working on for 6 years on 6 or 7 different, I forget actually, 6 or 7 determinants that have an impact on our health. Whether it's our environment, whether it's our work, whether it's our biology. There's a lot of determinants that impact our health. And I'm mapping that out with all the trends and everything that is happening to showcase to people that there's a lot happening already to make sure that the social determinants are tackled, that the commercial determinants are tackled, that all the other determinants are tackled as well. So what I see and what I continue to believe in, and I want you to believe in that as well, we are moving into the right direction. And the fact that you are all here is the biggest example of that probably. But we're not there yet. And we need to be we need to be conscious about the fact that it's not done yet, the work. But we are moving in such a great direction. We've never been in such a great direction as this, coming from where we are.
But in high-income countries, we're talking about that. I think that's what
Well, I primarily look at Asia and the northern half. In Africa, we're having more struggles. That's for sure. South America is changing, but yeah, I mean, I'm looking into the most developed countries right now. Yeah.
I'm just looking at you. I try to challenge you if I may.
No, please do.
I mean,
that's more fun.
You said that we are going in a good direction, but in one moment you mentioned there that we are very much focused on how to get the best out of us, of me.
Mm-hmm.
So that means also that you are isolating yourself. So I am important, give me value, I am the best. And then came COVID, where I give you, stay alone. And then was just a disaster for most of the people.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm just wondering, actually, the best of me instead of the best of us, like a community, like a group, it's actually not a cause of why we have more chronic, because when I'm going and I'm having a fast food, I'm on my own. I'm not cooking anymore with the family, with the friends. When I go to bed whenever I want, not with my family or whenever it's my friends, again, I know better. So I'm just wondering if...
Yeah, so again, I always answer the question with 2 things. First thing is, when it comes to my own, there's a lot more dynamics that comes into play than just taking care of yourself. There's the social media, the technology, the fact that we are overstimulated, that we can't really... So there's a lot of things that are happening there. Second thing is, if you look at the life aspirations model in my book, for every pillar, there is one that relates to solidarity, to relationships, to belonging, to being part of something. So in our universal aspirations, more and more what we see is that these things come to the forefront again. If it is to prevent things from happening, we're looking for solidarity. We're looking to feel part of a group. If it is belonging, we're thinking about LGBTQIA, everything related to that. People want to belong to a certain group, be accepted. And the focus that we have right now on relational wellness, on like the partner wellness, sexual wellness, is all related to, again, being together with somebody else as well. So there are a lot of trends that are popping up right now who try to go against that. But the construct, and I'm going back to the construct of our society and the things that we need to deal with, is not really inviting us to do that pretty well. So it is a challenge.
You put that quote out there that health will be Apple's biggest contribution. Well, I want to know if you agree with this, or rather than how Apple is just trying to save what's savable after they messed up hugely. Because we were just talking about the influence and how our life changed, with 2.3 billion iPhones out on the market or sold all over through time. I mean, if you think about our life back in 2007, 2006, it was just a whole different dynamic.
I think it's 100% accurate, the quote. Me personally, I'm an optimist, and I'll try to explain to you why. First of all, I think Google can say that even better. To me, Google is the biggest healthcare company in the world. There's no, what they did now with the AlphaFold, they identified all the proteins out there. They are really identifying all the diseases, and they will have a solution for that in a couple of years. Like, I'm not even talking 5 to 10 years, it's probably going to be shorter. To me, AlphaFold and Google will have the Nobel Prize for healthcare, I believe, in 2-3 years. This is my prediction. And it's not a human, it will be a software. I mean, there's the AI that will receive the first AI or reward the Nobel Prize for healthcare. This is my prediction. So, first of all, Apple, yes, and that's why they focus so much on privacy and so forth, but Google even better. Second thing is, could you imagine if we would have had COVID in 2007 or 2005? How would you have coped? Alone in your house, with no internet, no ways to see people, meet people, being able to work, being able to do stuff. So it's easy to say that, and honestly, I don't think Apple is largely to blame for the dopamine rushes that is being sold through everything through the app. I think that is something else. I think what we've seen now is that we have is overly excited people that cannot be bored. One of the things that I always say to my son is, when he says, I'm bored, I'm like, good. Good for you. Enjoy it. I mean, this is important. If he goes to the toilet with his phone, it's like, nah, not gonna happen. This is what we're living in. And I think it's a construct, but it has more to do with the small business behind it than actually the product in itself. And I was happy in 2020 that I had a technology and Apple devices.
So you mentioned claims, right?
Yeah.
And claims coming from various angles, from various people. So what's your take on who's going to control or regulate these claims? Because then it can come from everywhere.
Yeah, it's a very difficult one. I think we're over-regulated as an industry, the healthcare industry. I think it's slowing things down way too much. Then again, if it's not, we have an issue. So I think it always starts with self-regulation, and I really hope that the force of the masses will have an impact there. But again, if you're going into the medical field, or you claim to be in a medical field, and you're making promises that can't be, with health, I mean, I think it's the health industry needs to remain in the medical field, and the other ones should self-regulate. The lower you go into the Healthusiasm model, the more you.
So, given your position on technology, and given that AI and other companies look like they'll take over the world, what's the role of the doctor in the future that you're seeing?
Well, so you have the specialists doctor, which probably will be more, in my opinion, behind the scene than in front of the scene, because there will be a lot of AI in specialty care. And I think by which I mean behind the scene, they will be behind the AIs that will be regulating everything and making sure that everything goes well. And then you have the physician that will be in conversation with the patients, really on as much as possible human level. That's my hope. And then the primary care is a very difficult one. The primary care is what I refer to as care guides, where they will need to know a little bit about everything and will become less of a caregiver and move into a care guides.
Okay, I think that...
Can I just show you
yes.
and you can come then 30 seconds. Because the two others, there's a lot of fun stuff to be talking about if you're talking about how things will evolve and the way that the world is moving. But one of the most interesting ones to me is this one, which is personal science, saying that we don't accept, if you're talking about claims, etc., we don't accept anymore that the average study, very often male dominant, says this or that. We really want to know what it means for us. And if you look at how people go about running, I showed you all the technology that is happening today. Everyone that runs a marathon, anybody runs a marathon here? If you run a marathon, you know what you need to eat. You know what shoes you need to wear, what type of clothing, and it will be exactly different from the next person next to you. That's personal science. It's a truth based on your experience that you're doing. And we're seeing this more and more. And this will come into your practice definitely as well. And then finally, this is the most fun one, I think, is that if you really project into the future, we could imagine a future where diseases will become basically irrelevant. Because self-care is way more prevalent than sick care, because solutions in self-care or anything related to taking care of your health are more generic as well. So basically we can apply the same thing for everything. There's more diagnosis, there's more vaccines that will coming. And so we can imagine a future where basically diseases will almost be irrelevant compared to everything else when we talk about healthcare management. 99% of managing our health is already happening outside of the healthcare industry. And I think that would only grow, and it will make the way that we think about diseases, that it will radically change. We will also, if you think about longevity, for example, the whole longevity field is no longer talking about one disease, they're talking about cluster diseases. And they know that if they solve one part of that longevity problem, the fact that you're aging, is that they can solve a whole cluster of diseases. So they're not even talking about diseases anymore. And so my question is that are we really going to be talking about diseases still, or will we thinking about health management, aging, non-aging, and so forth? If you're interested, there's a lot of these things on my website where I actually write a lot about these reflections. Again, 100% accurate. At least in many ways you can see how that can then unfold. And if you want to link with me, this is the QR code to be linked. Thank you very much.